Hello and welcome to this session of 5 for 5th, where today we're going to be looking at section 8.5 of our 5th grade everyday math books. It's called Fractions of Fractions. Now the goal of this session, everyone, is we're going to be going through the entire section, giving an overview of 8.5. There is an additional video which discusses the conceptual understanding of fractions, which you may want to look at prior to this. And again, it's the conceptual understanding. This is just an overview of 8.5. Okay. As we begin, the MMR does a very nice review of unit boxes. So that's where the section will begin. And then the math message is going to refer the children to page 259, which is this page right here. And you'll notice it's broken into two parts. The top part, the children will be working with a number line. And then the bottom part, the kids will be working with unit fractions. This we thought was pretty challenging, so we wanted to really take some time out to talk about it. If you look at the number line they provided the children, it is very similar to the units we've been using where everything is broken into sixteenths. Now some of these problems, and please keep in mind, the kids are working together on this, so we're not really guiding them right now. This is their math message. So the way they come up with their solutions will be interesting. But we just wanted to talk about a few to kind of get prepared for what the kids might come up with. Some of them are fairly simple. 1/2 of 3. Most of the students are going to know if I'm at 3, 1/2 of 3 is 1.5. You know, but what's going to happen when we get to something like, oh, this one, what's 3/4 of 2? Well, if I'm here at 2, put my pen here I am at 2, do the students really understand that what is typically the half mark of an inch is really 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4? I don't know, but that's something we're going to want to draw their attention to, because once they see that connection, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4 will land them at 1.5. Okay? Now, when you get to a problem like 7, that concept's out the window, because look at this. What's 1/2 of 3/4? So now we're over here at 3/4, and we're asking the students to find half of that. I do believe that some students will count the tick marks. They will count the sixteenths, which is, they'll go off through it, which 12 sixteenths here, and then they'll know half of that would be 6 sixteenths. Some may do that. Or you can take a more mathematical approach, and we'll say 3 sixteenths is equivalent to 12 sixteenths. That's not using the number line at all. What's half of 12 sixteenths? Well, then half of that would be 6 sixteenths. I did not mean to put an equal sign. They're not equal. But 1/2 of 12 sixteenths is 6 sixteenths. So again, we don't know what the kids will come up with, but I'm sure it'll be creative, and we'll be ready for it. Then the bottom of the paper, I really loved this. This spiraled in, going back to a unit fraction. At first, when we were prepping this, we were getting a little bit, it was concerning, because we thought, oh no, how are they going to do this? But step back a minute. 2/3 of 12. Let's look at a unit fraction. What's 1/3 of 12? 1/3 of 12 is just 4. So then 2/3 of 12 is going to be 8. Just using a unit fraction. How about 2/3 of 18? Well, with a unit fraction of 1/3, 1/3 of 18 is 6. So 2/3 would be 12. And let's move around. Let's come over here to 15. 3/4 of 16. Well, 1/4, which is the unit fraction, 1/4 of 16 is 4, and 4 times 3 is 12. So there's the math message. Again, this can take some time, so we really wanted to be prepared for that. Then the remaining journal pages will focus on a very important concept on how to find the fraction of a fraction. While the book describes doing this first by examining the SRB and then folding paper, we suggest going directly to the drawings from the journal pages without folding or reviewing the SRB. Using the sketches, we feel the students will understand this concept more readily, and we've been doing unit boxes all year. Okay, now let's take a look. Before we get into fraction of a fraction, we really can't do that until we go back and revisit unit boxes. So when I take a look at this, what does 2/5 of 1 unit look like? Well, going back, it's been a couple months now. We look at 2/5 What does 2/5 of a unit box look like? There you go. Very important that the kids may need a bit of a review, but that's what the MMR in the beginning did, so they will be ready. Then when we look at this, let's review this real quick. Alex collects sports cards. 70 of his cards feature basketball players. These 70 cards are 2/3 of Alex's collection. How many sports cards does Alex have? Well, here we go. As the students have been taught, they're going to break their unit box into 3 sections. The 2 sections are what we know. He has 70 cards, represent 2/3, which is 35 and 35. The question is, how many cards does Alex have in all? Well, it would be 35, 35, 35, which means he has 105 cards. So that's just a little review of a unit box before we get into fractions or fractions. Okay. Now, let's bring this down. Zoom in a little maybe. Are we okay? 1/2 of 2/3. We really need to stress to the students that what we're going to do, we're going to find solutions through sketching. This is so important. And what's going to happen that makes what we're about to do so different than a unit box is now we're going to be taking one box and doing 2 operations on one. I'm sorry, I'm going all over the place. Let's slow down. Question is, what is 1/2 of 2/3? I must begin by asking myself, before I can take 1/2 of something, I need to know what I'm taking a half of. I'm taking a half of 2/3. There's 1/3, there's 2/3. And now if I want to take half of that, I'm going to use a different color. Again, this is for the children so they really can catch on. First of all, quite frankly, as teachers, we know that if half of 2/3 is going to be 1/3, but to show it visually, I'm going to now cut this unit box in half, and I'm going to shade one of those pieces. Okay? Now, I have just shaded half. I shaded 2/3 in yellow, 1/2 of that, I'm sorry, 2/3 in purple, 1/2 in yellow, and you can clearly see where the 2 colors overlap. And we did struggle. We know as adults you really would only be shading what's already been shaded, but I think that is such a leap for the children. Let's just shade the whole thing and talk about overlap. And again, our teachers will thank us when the kids get to high school and do systems. It's the same concept. So now here we are. We're looking within this whole unit. We have now broken this into, I know it's hard to see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sections, 2 of which they had in common. So 1/2 of 2/3 is equal to 2/6. This is so different than just telling the kids 1 times 2 is 2 and 2 times 3 is 6. We want to avoid that. We really want to help them understand the conceptual nature of this problem. So that brings us to their journal page, and if we look closely, please note, I really want to reiterate, they're calling this paper folding, but we suggested not going to the SRB for this section and not folding paper. Just keep them comfortable with the drawings that they've been doing for a few months now. So when we look at first example, 1/2 of 1/2, we're going to start 1/2 of what? We'll ignore that part. I'm going to do 1/2, show that first in purple, and then the kids would switch colors. Now they're going to take half horizontally, and they're going to show half this way. And if you look closely, we have now broken into 1, 2, 3, 4 sections, and one of which is shaded with both yellow and purple. So 1/2 of 1/2 is 1/4. The students will start to see the connection, and that's the purpose of upcoming sections. So if they start to see that multiplication algorithm right away, good for them, but we will not bring that up at this point. Now let's just take a quick look. What's 2/3 of 1/2? We start with the 1/2. We visually look at 1/2. There's 1/2 of the unit box. Now we go to 2/3. Okay, 2/3 of this is here. Think about how many blocks we now have. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 total blocks. and how many of which are shaded by purple and yellow? Well, that would be 1, 2. And then you would take 2/3, or of course, 2/6, or of course 1/3, either or. This is going to be a really challenging unit for us as teachers, not to just tell the algorithm up front, but let's let the kids color, let's let them have some fun, and progress with the unit as it's written. So thank you so very much. And then before we conclude, we just want to draw your attention to a couple of things. When we get to section 8.6, we're in 8.5 right now, when we get to 8.6, they're going to replace the word of with a multiplication sign. That's really the goal, so the kids understand of means multiply. And then the students are led to discover the fraction multiplication algorithm. Again, we're not telling them, they will be discovering that, and that's all going to happen in an upcoming unit. Okay, thanks again, thank you so much, and have a great day. See you at the next 5 for 5th.